In about 1990s, late 1996, 1997, parents like myself, about 5 of us came together because we were concerned about the reports that were coming out from the local authority that our children, and especially those classified to be Black Caribbeans, weren't performing well in the school system. My children were then quite young, so we came together as parents to create a communal entity that would collectively and cooperatively support our children in their learning. It was also designed to, when functional, to represent the children, in the context of to represent the children in the context of going into schools. Right, so the main reason was to create a space where our children could get support with the national curriculum, including cultural studies as well, which we considered to be absent from what they were being presented within schools, to create a space where they could socialize with each other, to create an entity that would be a legacy in terms of supporting learning even when we weren't around, and to create a space where they could hear of their own history and heritage as part of developing their identity and sense of belief. Challenges been quite a few. One of them is that the parents on a whole hasn't seen the bigger vision and the ability to believe that we're able to provide the support for the children. Challenges too is that we're faced with a situation where probably the children don't even believe within themselves that they have the capacity to be able to do excellent. So this is why we're actually doing what we're doing, to show and to demonstrate that we're able to help ourselves, and that's really what we should be doing.
I agree. I concur with everything that Kojo said. My view, my name is Richard Browne. My view comes from a different perspective because I focus on the curriculum. So my aspect that I'm thinking of is what are the needs of the children, how are we meeting the needs of the children based on the curriculum that they have to complete and access at school. So the curriculum now we focus on is gearing towards Year 6 SATs. Every child in Key Stage 1 and Key Stage 2 at some point will eventually be taking their SATs test. That SATs test, that result from the SATs test will determine what school they may go to, possibly. People don't actually speak that out as open as they should do. But it also determines what sets they actually go into in the school. So my view is, as everybody knows, if you're in the top set, you have a much better chance of gaining those A to C grades than as you would in a grammar school. If you're in the bottom set, say set 3, set 4s, the chances are that the reality actually is you can only sit a paper at a certain level, the equivalent of a D or less, which means you have no chance of ever sitting an A to C grade paper, which means ultimately when you leave secondary school, you are limited as to what qualifications you can go for as far as college, further education, and also what jobs you can go for to a degree based on the fact that you only have qualifications that are only at a certain level.
So are you saying that different stages of children are given different types of exams to
Currently in GCSE, the system is now changed to 1 to 9, but that 1 to 9 still equates to the old grade system. And the old grade system used to be that if you was in your set 3s, you could not sit at a C or above paper. You could only sit a paper that means you can only get a foundation paper, which is a maximum grade D or lower.
Wow.
And that's for any child in that lower set. So my view is now to change that whole perspective for parents. We live in a society where, yes, like in this area, it's 11 plus dominated. And I agree with the M+ system. I think grammar schools, there is a need for it. You have those children of higher ability who needs to be stretched. They need that level of work, they need that level of attainment, they need that level of pace of work. I have no qualms with a grammar school system at all. But what people forget is, ultimately, every child can achieve. Where you start doesn't determine where you end up. That's my philosophy. Where you start doesn't determine where you end up. So my view is very simple. We now have a curriculum system that's based on SATs. So we cover arithmetic, reasoning problem solving for maths, all the foundation skills. When it comes to English, we cover SPAG, which is spelling, punctuation and grammar, and comprehension. All the tests that you are going to sit at the end of year 6 in SATs, which will determine what sets, what challenges you will get, what support you will receive, what level of able teacher you will receive in secondary school if you do not go to grammar school. And those determining factors will affect your education in secondary school. So my message to parents is, yes, push your child to pass 11+ if they are able, if they have that natural ability, yes, do that. But ultimately, push them to be into set 1 in their current primary schools. Ensure they pass their SATs, but not just hit that 100, the pass rate. Ensure they're hitting 110 and above. Ensure that they can actually have an ability or the chance of getting into set 1 in the secondary school, or if they achieve set 2, they will have the natural instincts within them that they want to strive and achieve more.
So the pass rate is 100?
100 for SATs.
What's the highest they can get? What's the maximum?
That's a very good question. Actually, to be honest with you, I actually don't know.
No.
To be fair, I actually don't know what the highest rate you can achieve. I know you can go, you've got a level 5, the equivalent of level 5, and go to a level 6 paper, but it's all based on scoring. I actually don't know.
But the pass rate is 100?
Highest 100. Okay. You want to be achieving, to secure yourself into a set 1 in secondary school, they may not call it set 1 in secondary school, but you know, your higher level achieving class, you want to be hitting 115. You want to be meeting 115. I recently worked with children who were set 4, who were supposed to, how can I put this in a politically correct manner? They are expected to pass their SATs, but due to challenges of their educational abilities, they may not pass their SATs. But we adopted the attitude of, these children should be pushed to the point that they could pass their SATs.
Potential.
They have that potential. 7 of them passed it out of 14. Our SATs results from the previous year went from 69% to 81%. Not because our level of ability of teaching improved for those higher and middle able children, it's because our level of ability of teaching improved for those least able children.
So, I mean, you're obviously very experienced in the mainstream education fields.
Yeah.
What brought you into a Saturday school?
People like Kojo, to be honest with you. My mum, I went to school, young man sat over there. Dear Lord, I went to Saturday school when it was original premises in Green Street when I was a young child myself. My mum was on the same. My mum always said education is the most important skill and tool you'll ever have in life. And she's right. And I told my children the same thing. And what I mean by that is that if you leave school, even with a degree, you know, you can have an honours degree, it doesn't mean you're going to follow that route that you decide to take at university. Or if you do decide to follow that route, because of that degree, that shows to other people you have the potential to learn another skill. You have the potential to try another avenue, another career. You have that potential. That potential means that somebody will believe in you. Somebody will give the opportunity to give you another job within a different field. You could start a new career. You have the potential then to decide for yourself, how could I change my life? I may go and live somewhere else in the world. Start a different career somewhere else in the world. Travel around the world. But that knowledge, those skills you learn from education, is what you actually need to start with. It's a bit like cavemen. Cavemen developed because they had the ability to then create fire. They had then the ability to catch fish, make tools, build a home, come out of the caves and actually build a structure out of the caves. So without those tools, you can't develop.
And in the Saturday school environment, how is your philosophy?
Each one teach one.
Mm-hmm.
My philosophy is very simple. We are the teachers of the children initially, but we must not forget that children can also teach us and inspire our learning. So for instance, I've created a maths program three maths programs actually over the past 2 years, and the inspiration for that maths program has been my own teaching development, the children I've worked with in my mainstream school, and the children here. Their learning needs, and I don't just mean a child who is struggling in some way, has a lack of understanding, but those children who are excelling, how can I stretch them? How can I improve give them greater depth? How can they show me that they can understand and teach another person to level degree as me? Simple way of doing that is each one teach one. So when they actually have completed their work, they go to another child who hasn't completed their work, teach that child, become the teacher.
That happened to my daughter because obviously my daughter went to a static school. She excelled. She was 18 months reading age above everybody else in her class, and the teachers called it group learning. So they used my daughter and other gifted children to help younger children. But it did affect her learning because she stopped learning. She wasn't pushed any further. There was a ceiling she couldn't get through.
And that's the balancing act.
Yes.
That's the balancing act. But when I say teach one, and I agree with what you're saying there, it's not just the most able teaching, it's everybody teaching. So for instance, there's a child in my group who I know they may have struggled with 3 questions, didn't understand it, but by the 4th question, they're able to complete that question by themselves, they understand what they're actually doing. I will ask that child to teach another child. So you're constantly, the expectation from me, an expectation from you is that you can't just answer a question. You're not just writing down an answer. You're focusing on the journey to the answer. What strategies did I use? How can I explain the concepts that I used? So that you can recall that information, and then when you're in a test condition, which every single one of our children have to be at some point in this test condition, they can independently answer that question accurately within the time they actually have. For stretching other children, there's no limit to that. The curriculum now within primary school is, I would say, it's quite inspiring at the moment, in the sense that if you have a child in year 4, it used to be long days that you actually give them year 5 work. You don't do that anymore. What you're looking at now is how can you give them greater depth? So they're able to work and produce work at this level within year 4, but how can you expand that? How can you expand their knowledge? How can then you give them reasoning, problem solving questions? Give them the question, give them the answer. Now they have to work out a strategy of how they got to that answer.
And in your teaching of maths, do you use any culture within the teaching of maths?
I actually don't. The reason I don't is for one very simple factor. I'm focused on the curriculum only. Within the school, yes, we have an ethos. Within the school, we don't ignore the fact that we have a black heritage and a black culture. But within the actual teaching itself, when it comes to maths and English, I'm focusing on the fact is that in the real world they live in, they're going to have to compete and they're going to have to excel within the school environment they're in. And the reality of that is, I need to teach them those skills so they can actually do that. Okay. Within the culture of the school, at times we'll have sessions when we can talk and discuss our black heritage and black culture. If they're more able, more confident through the teaching that I actually deliver, you will find that they can then be able to relate their actual own culture to what they're actually doing at the same time anyway.
Okay, my view is that my view is that the issue of reference has to be paramount, because in the context of other people's culture, their sense of belief in themselves is based on the issue of accomplishment, whether collective accomplishment or otherwise. So therefore, reference has to be an essential part of the discussion, because they need to know that what they've been asked to do isn't something that's just falling out of the sky, but something that actually belongs to and is a part of the journey of us as a people. So the idea that high culture and learning started in Europe and is referenced across in terms of European teaching and excludes others. We're saying that our children need to be in a space where they're hearing that accomplishment and achievement is something that is natural to us too. And we can strive to it by having an understanding that the maths, the medicine, the science, all these things that we're doing are actually tied into culture and an expression of culture.
And speaking of science and maths, who's the ultimate king of science and maths?
And when you said, I could go straight back to Imhotep.
Exactly. Did they ever mention Imhotep in mainstream school?
No, they don't.
No. But if he was European, do you think they would?
But in mainstream school, we don't mention any other cultures either.
But you talk about
when we're teaching maths,
talking about personalities.
But,
Okay, when I was even doing maths at uni, I'm hearing names like hypocrites, like sorry, not hypocrites,
Socrates,
Pythagoras,
yes.
Pythagoras, and everything was and it was good for me to know that I had a reference that went beyond Pythagoras, and Pythagoras was even a student to my ancestors who actually provided these systems based on science to the rest of the world. It did something for my sense of worth and my sense of belief that it's not something I'm being asked to do that is, the result of somebody else, but we actually contributed collectively to this process. And I like to put it this way. We're doing a 4x4, a 4x100 meter relay. The baton had started. It's now being passed on, and it's our time to run with it and prepare those who will be giving it to next.
Yeah, but names like Einstein are mentioned in mainstream schools, and Newton.
Well, I work in mainstream primary school. So in mainstream primary school, we're inclusive. So cultural references of any cultural references, we don't include anyone.
Really?
Yes. Because ultimately, everybody is equal.
That's the
there is nobody different. Whether your level of ability, your culture, your colour, your affluence is irrelevant to us within our school. We are all equal. So that's how we teach.
That's in mainstream school.
In my mainstream school.
But from a societal position, that's not the case though, and we're trying to prepare the children actually to live within that reality and to be able to cope with the demands of that reality. And one of the best antidote is knowledge of self.
Absolutely. So yes, you both do an absolutely fantastic job at the Akacia Status School here in High Wycombe. Thank you very much for your time, and I hope the school prospers for many years in the future.
Thank you, Neil.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Yeah.